Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Bone, podcast about everything athletic training. Your host, Shelby Daly, is an ATC, working currently at Penn Med. And joining us today, we have Joey Lopez ATC. I'm Randy, a guy that Shelby found in the do-it-yourself aisle at Home Depot to do deep voiceovers. Other than that, Joey is an ATC, but has branched into something that is very important to ATCs, and that's money. So he's a Philadelphian. You'll have to explain that in greater detail later. Why not? Owner of and CEO of Benjamin Stackham's financial mindset company. And then you have another company beyond that you're going to have to say the name to, because I'm just not that talented. So this other company, the athletic training company, is what?
Kinesiatrics.
Oh, there we go. All right. Kinesiatrics. It's a ATC company looking to challenge the status quo. Now, apparently you two met on the field of arena football. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, not exactly, but
Not exactly.
we've both crossed into the arena football stadiums.
All right, so you were with the LA Kiss and the Philadelphia Soul. Is that who you were with?
I was with them. Yep, that was back years ago. Did an internship last time I did it was 2016, 17.
So
okay.
I would have been right before you.
Okay, well, there we go. All right. Now, to start things off, we always like to find out, what is your favorite thing about being an AT? Joey?
So where I'm at now, I'm a big foodie, and I just love the fact that athletes bring you food, right? But aside from that, right, just something small. Honestly, the opportunities that really comes with it, right? So I had some awesome experiences. My first gig right out of college was an internship of Detroit Lions. A little bit after that, I got to go to Israel and do the Jewish Olympics, the Maccabi games and stuff. So it's really a lot of the opportunities that this field affords you. And especially like the outside, or not the outside, how can I word this? The non-traditional type stuff, that when people actually step into it and kind of see it's more than just sports, right? Or if it is sports, the setting's going to be different. For example, just like I said, the Maccabi games, Jewish Olympics, I got to do, for the first time, I'm a real big MMA fan. So I got to do judo, karate over there. Never done them before. I had a lot to learn, but at the end of the day, it was the fact that I was able to not only just learn it there, but experience it where I experienced that too. So I think it's really more so what opportunities this field can afford you, just if you actually go look for them.
Now, I got to ask, we have Alaska Native Olympics, so we have some very unique events that are in the Alaska Native Olympics. What's a unique event to the Jewish Olympics?
I want to say, honestly, it's not more so that there's like a unique event to it, but it's more so how they just put everything together. It's still your lacrosse, your basketball, it's very much a sister company, I found out, to the Olympics. But I do like the fact that it was everybody also from all over the world, as you would expect it being the Olympics and everything. But they all shared into one goal, was just to bring up, and I'm not Jewish. But it was cool to not be one, but be accepted into the community, being a sports medicine professional and all that. But how they all had one goal, is to bring up, their own culture and through something that's already being done, but just within their own community.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Now, so you have a little bit different trajectory in your ATC profession than most. You actually had kind of a break from ATC as a full-time profession and went into finance. Why Tell us a little bit about the transition from ATC to finance.
Yeah, I mean, so since college, I've been doing a lot of per diem. I mean, there's times where I didn't, and I know a lot of athletic trainers deal with this, but this is voluntarily because I had some weekends off. But there was times where I didn't even take off for like 3 to 4 months at a time. It was just per diem, per diem, per diem. So I started reading a lot of books. I just noticed, obviously, there's a lot of downtime at per diem unless somebody needs you. We know that, unless you get called to a field or something like that, you're not needed. But if you are, put the book down and go. It honestly started with a health journey, really. So back in 2018, I read, I want to say 3 or 4 books. And I highly recommend this to everybody. Own the Day, Own Your Life, Aubrey Marcus, one of my favorite books, out there. That was one of the books that helped me change a lot of my health. And this was going towards the end of 2018. And one of the questions that I asked myself going into 2019 was, and I lost 30 pounds just reading the stuff that I read in the book. One of the questions I went into 2019 was, if I could do this for my health, what can I do with my finances? Just reading a book. 2019, I read 32 books, 20 of them were finance. And obviously a lot of that stuff, especially athletic trainers, we don't learn a lot of that. So, just everything was new. Something as simple as dollar cost averaging, right? And all dollar cost averaging, for those listening who don't know what that is, it's literally you just putting, no matter what the market goes up or down or it stays neutral, you put in, if you allocated $100 a month to invest, you do it no matter what. I thought that was mind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not something I would have ever thought of, right? Because I'm so thinking about, how do I tape an ankle better? How can I do rehab better? How can I, it's not in my mind there, right? So, I think we all know what happened after 2019, 2020. We had the pandemic come. And I was furloughed for about, I want to say 5 or 6 months. And I want to say it gave me a lot of time to reflect. But a little bit before the pandemic, right, some of the books that I read were within business. I wanted to open my own LLC, and I opened 2 of them. One of them, Benjamin Stackham's, right? The other one, I didn't have a name, right? At first, I wanted to be called the Sportsman. And I figured it would get the message of athletic training out there better, right? Because they're like, oh, he does sports medicine, all about the athletic trainer. You tell somebody who doesn't know what that is. First thing, and I'm sure Shelby can tell you too, right? And I'm sure you probably heard this, but oh yeah, y'all want to learn, or I want to lose this much amount of body fat. What do I do to train? It's not what I do. Can I help you with that? To a point, yeah, but that's not the priority there, right? So I just named it my name, Joseph Lopez LLC. It was funny because at the time it was around February 20th. I remember that date, February 20th. And there were still rumors about, the pandemic coming and everything. And people were still buying toilet paper at that time. So I was at a supermarket where they had a bank. Right. And I'm opening my business bank account. Everybody behind me, because if you turn around, you can see the registers, and everybody's piling up with toilet paper. I was scared. I'm like, am I doing the right thing here? Like, I had no clue. I walk out with, business bank accounts and everything. I'm going home. Like, what am I doing? Is this right? Blah, blah. Come to find out later on, I mean, I set myself up, thankfully, for success, and, since there, everything just developed. And just knowing what athletic trainers go through, because I still continue to do per diem to this day. And it's always the same message for the most part whenever I talk to them. Like, what do you get working for this extra money for? Well, we know the economy's not the greatest. So at this time, everybody's working to make ends meet, right? After working 60 hours, right? Because anywhere from 40 to 60 hours, right, is that full-time mark for athletic trainers. They're saving to, for their wedding, saving to go on a trip, saving. I haven't heard much about them making money work for them, right? How are they protecting their money? How are you making sure that your retirement is going to be good? For none of that ever came up while making this extra money. And I felt like there was a gap, in what we could do, because the per diem market is amazing right now. I mean, people are making anywhere from $45 to $50 an hour. And now that's money that they can be capitalizing on and making work for them. So knowing that that's happening, and knowing that I have some of the knowledge, right? I just felt like it would be wrong of me not to tell athletic trainers and the general public overall, right? But especially athletic trainers, while I have this info, to only keep it for myself, knowing that they're working so hard for the most part just to make ends meet.
Uh-huh. So when Shelby was still in school, one of the things I did is I required her to take an investing class through the local university before she went off on her own. What steps would you suggest to young budding ATCs about finance? I mean, is a savings account going to be enough? What does it take? What are the first steps?
So first steps, honestly, budgeting. I would always tell somebody to budget, right? Because people want to save money, but if you don't know how much you have, right, and then you kind of, let's say you over budget for savings without budgeting, if that makes sense, right? Now you have to pull from your savings just to make sure that you could, pay this or that off, right? So the first thing is you have to know every single, where every single dollar is going. I have this notion that I tell people, right? We're all born with a business, all of us, right? Number one, the business of life. And number two, we have a social security number. Social security number could be used in one or two ways: as an employee or as an independent contractor, right? So as an independent contractor, especially from a per diem standpoint, you're a business, right? So every single business, no matter what, has to do bookkeeping because you have to do taxes at the end of the year, right? Or at least at the end of the tax year. Well, if you understand that, then you understand that budgeting is bookkeeping for the business that you were born with, right? Most people, and they would agree with this, but if you hire employees, you wouldn't let your employees just sit there and do things. You hire them to perform certain tasks. Same thing with your money, right? So know what your money's doing and know what every single dollar is there. What you assigned it for. Did you assign it to the leisure department for you to go out and spend this much, right? Or the finance department, right? Where now you're investing your money, or I like to call it recruiting, because if they're your employees are recruiting more employees to work for you long term. Right? Investing. Other part of the finance department is paying off debt, stuff like that, right? So now you know how much you can save. Now, after that, we find out how much we could put into investments, right? And one of the things that come up when it comes to investments, right, is it's too hard. It's too risky, right? And I tell people a lot of the time, if you really want to I shouldn't say get rid of, but if you want to minimize at least risk to a certain point, index funds are one of the most easiest things that you can do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have a Roth IRA, and I think the only stock, of course, this isn't me recommending anybody to buy this and stuff, but the only singular stock I have is NVIDIA. I just wanted to add a little bit of a fan on that one,
Did you buy it because Pelosi bought it?
Hey, the greatest trader of all time. Let's talk about that one. No. Greatest trader of all time. But I will say, I just wanted to add a little bit of risk in there, right? I'm 34 years old. I mean, if you're looking at least the government's retirement age, we're still at around 65. So if you look at that, so I have 31 years. Right? I had to take a risk. Everything else is invested in different types of index funds.
Right.
The other thing also, even before investing, to a point, right? But an emergency fund. If somebody does not have an emergency fund, they're going to pull straight from their investments, right? Or anything else that they have, even their retirement. So they're going to rob from their future selves,
right,
to be able to pay their present self, which isn't bad. But if we had something set up now that could kind of minimize that from happening, or from taking your retirement investments, or if you have something to give yourself that cushion, right?
Well, and that's a really important point too, because if you are aggressively trying to build a nest egg for retirement in future, quite often you're going to use qualified money. And if you have to touch qualified money, not only are you stealing your future, but there's huge penalties on it. So you want to have a little bit of non-qualified emergency super liquid money. And then you have the stuff that, I don't want to get to it easily because it'll keep me a little bit more honest.
100%. One of the things that I do, I mean, high yield savings accounts, right? And I love that they're available to us. So one thing I do, I have liquid and semi-liquid money with my high yield savings account. So I have two high yield savings accounts. So how is it liquid and semi-liquid? Semi-liquid because it's in an online bank, right? And it grows about, when I first started, it was growing at 5%. Obviously the Fed has decreased rates, so now that 5% went down to 4.25.
Right.
So I got part of my emergency fund, majority of it in there so it can grow. I have so that's the semi-liquid money. The liquid money is, I have about 1,600, looking to get up to 2,000 personally and leave it there. So that way now it's in a high yield savings account in a credit union that I have quick access to.
Correct.
That one's growing at about 1.5%.
Right.
Right. So I at least have it growing somewhat, while the other one is growing a little bit more at 4.25, and this was at 1.5 right now. So that way now, obviously, if I needed something, I would just take some of the semi-liquid money, have it transfer over, and at least have that $1,600 at least right now that I have to be able to hold me over.
Now, do you recommend when you're talking to your clients about financial freedom and contingency accounts like this, do you have, I started out back in the day trying to make sure that I always had 3 months of income on the shelf so that if I said the wrong thing at work and HR put me on the sidewalk, I knew I had 3 months that I could take to get another position. Since I've exceeded that, I'm now up to like, minimum of 6 months on the shelf in the super liquid. Do you have a rule of thumb for that and how to get there?
It's essentially the same. I mean, essentially the same 3 to 6 months, right? I mean, I always tell people too, especially like, even when you get there, don't stop there, right? Because I mean, you may lose a job, right? But on top of you may lose a job and your car breaks down and your pet may need surgery and you never know.
And you might have kids by that time.
That part, you just never know what life's going to bring.
That's right.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, don't stop. And the rule, honestly, is just like you dollar cost average into investments, what's called dollar cost average, right? Into your emergency fund.
All right. So now, one of the things that they talk about often is, Americans and people in general live a very stressful life today. And a lot of that can be traced back to financial stresses. So how does financial literacy help take that stress off and improve performance, physical performance?
I'm a big believer that every single thing starts in the mind, right? So I have this thing where I say everything is within the system, right? So the way I go about teaching finance has a lot to do with psychology, spirituality, physics, and biology. I take it from a different state. So I look at it from there. So taking that to understand everything's in the system, I mean, first, right, to understand what I'm saying here, you have to uncap a bottle before you drink it, and then you got to recap it, right? Step 1, uncap. Step 2, drink, right? So taking that into finances and how everything works, right? You have to understand, first thing, language creates thoughts. Thoughts then dictate your actions. Actions then dictate your habits. Habits then dictate your life, right? So going to the financial literacy and all that, it comes down to the language, right? So if we don't know something as simple as, let's say the rule of 72, right? So those who aren't familiar with it, rule of 72 just basically states that if you take 72 and divide it by the interest rate in which you're getting an account, it'll tell you how long it'll take you to double your money. All right. So now we know that principle, but now not knowing that we have to beat inflation, right? Because now using the rule of 72, let's say, because when, I believe the Federal Reserve Bank, I think their inflation goes 2%. So if we use that, using the rule of 72, every 36 years, the spending power of your dollar is cut in half.
Correct.
So now, right, we're looking at that. Well, if this is the case, but we know we have to continue to beat inflation. Boom, language. What does that look like in your head now? Oh, it looks like I got to make more money. What does me making more money look like? Do I have to work overtime? Do I have to invest more? Do I have to make a side hustle? Right, it is. Excuse me. And then now it turns into action. Whatever investing more looks like. Whatever, having to do more per diem, having to build a business, whatever it is. You're so engulfed in that, right? Especially because now I'm full-time for myself. I've been for 3 years. I changed up my habits, right? I had changed the language, had to change the images in my head, turn to action, and now it changed my habits, and now it changed the way I was able to go about it, right? So if we look at financial literacy from the aspect of why it starts there, it all depends on the language in which you're getting to be able to use that to take action and serve you, right? If you knew, I mean, you eat too many carbs, just like the language in athletic training, right? To the point you want to help an athlete with sports nutrition, you eat too many carbs and stuff. It may kind of hurt you because, if you're over carbing, it could turn into fat. You want the right amount of carbs to then be able to fuel you before a competition, right? If you're telling somebody if all they're doing is eating meat, cholesterol's going to get high. It all comes down to just how you say things and what you're taking in, right? So it all starts with just that language. If we're getting the wrong language, right, we're going to be, if we think it's right, well, we're going to be maneuvering ourselves in the wrong way. If we get the right language, we'll maneuver ourselves in the way that we have to, if that makes sense.
Well, and then one of the things that you said, you talked about your money recruiting other money, just as you would, as an employer, recruit employees. A lot of people, again, because we don't teach it, we don't actually teach our economic system in school. We don't teach how our government works, the concept of the rule of 72. We haven't taught that well for about 50 years now. So you run into situations where people don't even understand the concept of passive income, where you just went through the list of, okay, if I needed to make more money because at 2%, 36 years out, we're going to lose half our buying power. Well, past 3 years, we saw that number go to about 20% increase. So that means that your buying power is being cut in half in just a couple of years, not 32, but just a couple of years. So there's only 24 hours in a day. One of the constants. You cannot work. I mean, you can bill more than 24 hours a day. There's a little bit of an ethical question, but there's only 24 hours in a day. So one of the things that you have to be able to do is figure out, well, how do I either duplicate myself, employees, which has its own set of variables. How about that? We'll use variables. So there's employees, and they create a whole set of variables, or there's passive income from making your money go out and recruit more money. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like, how to recruit more, or
well, you talked about having a savings account. Now the savings account at a bank, passbook saving, is going to be the lowest return you're going to get, but it's super, super, super safe. And then you go up and you have like a money market account is one way to increase your the amount of money you're making on it. You can do CDs, and there's typically, if you look at the CD rates, there's like this beautiful little bell curve that says, well, if you want to put it in for 3 months, you're not going to make a lot. So if you put it in for 18 months to 2 years, that's a beautiful higher rate. And then if you want us to guarantee it longer than that, well, there's more risks because of time, so we're going to drop off. So there's ways of increasing the rate at which your money works for you. What are some of your keys?
Well, I think the one thing that is missed in this conversation for the most part is the protection of your money.
Okay.
Right. So I like to start with that before I talk about growing your money. Right. So obviously we talked about the cushion of an emergency fund. Right. So one of the things that I do, right, I have life insurance policies.
Okay.
Right. So why does this matter in this scenario?
Yeah.
So
you're young. You're going to live forever. You don't need life insurance.
You would think, you wish, right? But the whole thing is this. So especially for those, I believe it matters for more of those who are self-employed, right, and business owners and stuff. But it still matters to people who have jobs. So we're looking for money to come in, no matter what, because without money, we're not able to live to a certain extent, right? Bills need to be paid, all this other stuff. But luckily, there's something called living benefits, and a lot of people are not aware of those. Right. So you have the death benefit that, God forbid, knock on wood, right? You have a life event. Since he passes, that death benefit will pay out to the beneficiaries. We have life insurance policies, right? So, for example, I have one $500,000 policy where, God forbid, something happened, critical, chronic, or terminal illness happens. I can pull from that death benefit of $500,000. So let's say I needed $50,000 one year. I would take from that $500,000. Now, instead, I don't owe it back. The only thing now that death benefit goes from $500,000 down to $450,000. Right. So that way now, just like we're talking about growing our money, we don't want to take from our money, because the more we're able to protect it, the more we're able to then focus on growing it. Right. And we look from different avenues. Right. So that's one of the things there. So once we have that in place, right, think of like disability insurances. right? God forbid you lose your income. Well, now you at least have, I don't like that it's called disability insurance. I would like to call it more income insurance, right? Because you are technically insuring your income, a percentage of it. God forbid you do become disabled, short term or long term. So once we have that, then I believe that conversation then shifts over to where can we, right? Two of my favorite vehicles. Number one, I love Roth IRAs. Love them. I
So
think
just real quick on that, the difference between a Roth IRA and a standard IRA is?
So a traditional IRA, right? So there it's tax deferred. It's all pre-tax money where the money that you put in now you get to write off now. But of course, Uncle Sam needs their tax money and also the time you retire, you're going to have to pay it at the time of retirement. Where a Roth IRA, you put the money in now, pay the taxes now, and all your gains become tax-free.
Very good. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to clarify that. Not everybody knows what a Roth IRA
No, by
was.
all means, I appreciate that. But yeah, I love that vehicle, and it's just the fact that you could control your own investments, right? I do like 401ks, right? But the fact is you don't have that much of an option. You just have the option of menu, right? That menu options that your employer presents within a 401k.
Now, I'm going to correct you on that because one of the companies I set up my own simplified employee pension with a 401k, and you could buy individual stocks through that. So it just depends on if it's through an employer. Yes, they kind of super simplify it so that there's not a lot of messing around. Makes it very simple for the employee. But as an employer, you have the option. You can actually go out and set up a SEP on your own, and then have what do you want to go ETFs or your favorite? What was your favorite? You said the
index funds,
ETFs, individual stocks. And mutual funds. You can put all those into a SEP if you set it up right.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, most of the 401ks that I've seen people talk about, they usually have the target date funds and all that. So that's what I'm used to seeing and all that. Yeah, like with the Roth, like I said, so you can, and obviously, right, you can choose your own investments, right, no matter what. I mean, the only caveat to that is that I think at least at the time of this recording, it's a $7,000 contribution, right at this time, I believe it is.
Yeah, because and then the numbers change a little bit once you hit. I think it's 55. You put some makeup in, which is typically an extra $1,000. But for you young folks, yeah, it's basically the same as the IRA numbers.
So I would definitely say a Roth IRA is definitely one of those vehicles that I would tell most people if they were to look to invest and where they start. I would definitely say that's one vehicle to use. Another more complicated one. And I wouldn't recommend this for everybody, but I'm a fan. I know some people aren't, but I guess it depends on who you talk to as an IUL. So I have an index universal life policy. And this is the way I look at it, right? So with the Roth IRA, with all the downside, you get all the upside, or the upside, you get downside, right? So it's right? With a IUL, index universal life policy, it's kind of a little bit different, right? So you have cap gains, but you have no loss. Right. So if the market, let's say my cap is 15%, just making these numbers up to make math easier. Let's say the market goes 30%, my gains are capped at 15. I only get 15. But if the market goes negative, I don't lose anything. It might go down to 0%, but that means I didn't lose anything. So the way I look at it, I believe I'm very universal, right? And I believe in like the laws of the universe. And one of my favorite ones is law of polarity. The reason why we know left is because we know right, up because we know down, boy because we know girl. Well, I like that because my risky side is in my Roth IRA and my conservative side is in my IUL. Right. So I kind of play a little bit of both. And in that way now, God forbid something happened. Oh, my Roth IRA took a hit. So my IUL did it. Right. But then again, if I get all like 30%, well, I got 30% in my Roth, but I didn't get it in my IUL. But either way, I maxed out at that 15% cap.
Right.
If something were to happen.
Well, and kind of predictably, the market tends to roll in 3 to 5 year kind of tides, and so something that is good at year 1 by year 5 may be the inverse, and the things that aren't as aggressive at year 1 will be the things you want to be in. So it's diversification is always a good idea, and that's I think what you're saying there is that you need different products to address different levels of risk.
Yeah, that, and then also going back, I mean, that 401k is also, I believe, a good vehicle. You know, some people bash it because of the fees and all. I'm really good friends with my accountant, and he has, let me tell you, that guy has educated me so much, you know, and I think a lot of people, just because of the fees, they're like, oh, I want to go into something else, you know, Roth, and because 401k also has a Roth option depending on people's employers.
Right.
You know, some people don't realize that, but it's also protected from creditors. You know, and that way somebody has something like a bankruptcy. Well, now they don't have to liquidate that. And obviously retirement, I mean, imagine getting your retirement liquidated all because now you owe this or that and you're in bankruptcy.
Right.
If we could avoid that, 401k is a great option.
Right.
You know, so I mean, that's not to say the 401, because I know we mentioned it earlier. It's not to say a 401k is bad. I'm a big fan of it. Obviously, I'm self-employed. I just haven't gotten myself a 401k yet. It doesn't make sense if I'm not maxing out my Roth.
Right.
But, you know, just to put that out there, you know, that'd be a great, if somebody has it, you know, number one, if they're looking for a Roth, you know, just because you don't have a Roth IRA doesn't mean you can't have a Roth 401k. But also you have that creditor protection on top of that and a bigger contribution limit.
Yeah, the only challenge you have to if you get both a Roth and a standard, the net number that you can put into both is the same. So if you had $7,000 that you could put in, you could put $3,500 in a Roth and $3,500 in a standard IRA, but the total's going to be $7,000 regardless.
Right.
So because otherwise, shortly after the end of the year, you get a note and they say, well, you know, you over contributed, and so guess what? No bennies there.
100%.
Yeah. So it's you know, it's like you said, it's keeping track of things. Now, what do you see? So you got into, and so how is business? You kind of took a segue that you weren't expecting to take. You got into finance, which was not where you were aiming at, but how's business treat?
It's growing. You know, the finance business is definitely growing. I'm definitely still getting most of my dollars from kinesiatrics, which is great. You know, I'll be crossing my first 6-figure year this year. You know, so that was a big milestone for me. It took me 3 years, but one of the things, and I love athletic training. I just don't see myself as an athletic trainer, you know, for the rest of my life. But I would love to help the community for obvious reasons and all that. So in terms of financial business, I mean, it's growing. I did take a small step back. I just got licensed as a life insurance agent a year ago, and looking to study up to get my SAE, you know, SIE. I'm sorry, and series exams done, so I can start doing investments and everything. So that's in the works there.
So you're gonna start out with mutual funds, and then move on from there, or
whichever. I mean, I'm still learning about this, right? In terms of the exams, but whichever one allows me to sell variable products.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So just looking at that, but even to learn more, and I will be starting to do taxes under somebody. Come January, you know, I found out it's more data entry. I'm only doing like simple 1040s. Nothing more than that, because they're the simplest things to do. She wants to take it off her hands so she can focus on the more difficult stuff. So
outstanding.
So things are happening. Cool. Yeah. So I'm grateful for that.
Check out clinicallypressed.org/courses for access to free CEUs for athletic trainers. Register and enroll in as many CEUs as you'd like. New CEUs coming on a monthly basis, including from your host of To The Bone with Shelby Daly. Get ahead of your CEUs by listening to podcasts and getting credit for it. Clinically Pressed Company, making complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org.
With your business and as an athletic trainer, would you recommend that all athletic trainers should technically set up an LLC on the side, or do you think that's redundant if they do have a full-time job?
So for the most part, I would say yes, right? A lot of times too, with athletic trainers being, because in this aspect, they're using LLCs for per diem, right? So, yes and no. And the only reason why I say no, because sometimes, I mean, it's really not that complicated. Does come with a little bit of paperwork and all that, but a lot of times too, being that they are single member LLCs, sometimes, you know, especially knock on wood, God forbid, somebody get into a lawsuit or something like that, it's still easy to find the owner. It's just you, right? But it still creates some separation and all that, right? So depending on what they're looking for, like I'm looking to expand, right? I mean, I may not be an athletic trainer for the rest of my life, but I would love to put somebody in the place that I'm in right now while helping managing kinesiatrics itself, right? But you know, a lot of things too, a lot of people don't realize, you know, especially when you do W-9s, right, for a company that you work for. Well, a lot of people don't realize, but having an EIN as opposed to your social and giving it, because you never know where those papers go, it's a form of identity protection if you really think about it as well, right? Because now you're not giving away your social, it gets lost, somebody gets it. Oh, okay, let me look up this person, and we're only going into a more digital world as we move forward. Right. So if there's some way to protect it, you know, that's one way to do that, right? But also the separation it creates to an extent, right? Because granted, I'm working under the business, but if something goes wrong, kinesiatrics did it. I didn't, per se, to a certain extent, right? But again, single member LLCs are a little bit different than those who have 2 or more partners within there. So that's why I say yes and no. It all depends on somebody's situation.
Well, and if somebody did decide to open their own business and for some reason they did get fired or laid off or whatever happens these days, obviously medical insurance is required for all Americans. How can somebody actually navigate that better as a owner of their own company, since medical insurance as an independent person is very expensive these days?
No, I love that you
So,
asked that. I love that you asked a question because that's one of the things that so many people ask me. You don't have health insurance. What do you do for health insurance? So again, I'm really lucky that my accountant is somebody I knew since I was 12 years old. You know, we reconnected back in 2020, and that was one of the questions I asked him. So I know here in at least Pennsylvania, right, and every state has their own, but are you guys familiar with Penny, the insurance marketplace, health insurance marketplace?
Right.
I haven't heard of it.
So it's a health insurance marketplace, and my situation, right, when I first, and as I grew, my first year, I only made 30 grand, right? But that helped me because now what happens is the Pennsylvania marketplace gives you a tax credit up front, right? So I get about, if I'm rounding up, $300 a month. And what it is now that $300 a month gets paid out to the health insurance company. I only pay right now about $110 a month for health insurance, right? As my income grows, I still keep that $300 credit, but anything I owe come tax season, they're just going to tack it on top of what I owe, and I just pay them at the end of the year, right? So that way, other than that, there are places, I want to say it's called the Freelancers Union, right? I don't know too much about it. I know they do offer like life insurance, health insurance, and stuff like that. There's free resources for those who are independent contractors and freelancers. So that's one other place to take advantage of, right? But also if somebody's married, right, and they're married to a spouse who has health insurance for the job, that could be something to be taken advantage of because now they don't have to worry about it being that they're married, all assuming that the spouse that has the job isn't the one going under LLC, of course, right? But the spouse that has a job and it has health insurance, you know, if my fiance, right, let's say we were married, she had health insurance and I didn't, well, we get married, and now I don't have to worry about that too because I'm under hers, and I can just open my LLC. And
I know that COVID really shook up a lot of athletic trainers' employment status. So if somebody did already have an LLC in place, is there a way to opt into the marketplace and opt out depending on your status, or do you have to buy into it the whole time that you're in that marketplace, I guess?
can you ask one more time? I'm not sure if I got that.
So during COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs, you know, may have lost their medical benefits also. If an athletic trainer already had an LLC and opted into that marketplace for the insurance coverage, but then found a full-time job 6 months, 9 months later, would they have to maintain that insurance, or could they opt into that new employer's insurance and just kind of opt out of that insurance so they weren't double paying, if that makes sense?
I'm under the impression, I mean, just as far as my knowledge, you can cancel that at any time. You would obviously still be under the tax liability of what it comes with, you know. So let's say if you had it for 6 months, then obviously that tax liability, if you owe, you might not. It all depends on the situation. But if you had it for 6 months and the other 6 months you didn't, let's say you did owe, you would still owe for that 6 months. right? Being that you already took advantage of that tax credit that they were able to give you up front there. But I don't believe you have to be stuck into it. I've been there for 3 years. Like I said, obviously I've been self-employed for 3 years, so I haven't had to opt out of it. So again, what I'm saying is total assumption. But I believe that is how it works, because I don't see, if they didn't, I believe that if the states didn't have to put something out and will save them money, they probably would be able to, like, yeah, you can get out and save that money, so that way now they could be able to service somebody else a little easier. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I just know with employers, there's once a year that you can change your insurance, and then you're kind of stuck with it the whole year. So I wasn't sure on the fluidity of that type of coverage. I mean, if you're out of a job, I'm sure they let you opt in pretty quickly, but wasn't sure.
I know there's a I want to say it's November 15th to January 15th is open enrollment. I want to say. So now you can't change your insurance until next open enrollment period, right? At least with the marketplace. I mean, if you didn't go with the marketplace, you could get insurance whenever you want to, but at that point then too, because you're going through the market, because you're not going through the marketplace, you're going to pay a full premium.
Okay.
Right. You could pay $400 at that point, where the marketplace again gives you, for me, $300, and I only pay $110. Right. So it all depends on when you're doing. But if you're doing through the marketplace, it's only about once a year to stay within that credit.
Okay. Because I know that a lot of athletic trainers have these 10-month contracts, and some schools or organizations are nice enough to provide insurance for those 2 months that they're not specifically working, but trying to provide other options for those athletic trainers that may not have that coverage for those 2 months, and try to figure out different ways to make sure that they're covered and create options. So just not sure on how much you have to actually buy in and the fluidity of it. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
Right.
You know, something that might be kind of interesting for an insurance professional to pursue would be to find a company that's writing health insurance policies, and approach one of your national organizations, national athletic training associations, and say, hey, you know, as a benefit to membership, you could be the host for an insurance program for independent contractors who are working as athletic trainers. And it would be then an outside product that somebody who is doing per diem work could sign up for. You've got a group rate because you've got basically a market of all the athletic trainers in the country that could be part of the group if you market it properly. So you get a big group. It should be a very healthy group for underwriting purposes, because who knows how to take care of people better than athletic trainers. So you should have an aggressive underwriting provided as a benefit to membership, and that could be a real win for somebody who wanted to put together that program. You know anybody who could do that? Oh, okay. Just
we'll cut
saying.
this part out so you can take it, right?
I knew Joey when. He didn't have his own damn jet.
Well, and I think that's why a lot of athletic trainers end up falling out, because they don't have those resources necessarily in place, and it's super expensive to do it on your own. So,
well,
I mean,
you know, you see some of these people who complain about how much money they make, but part of that compromise they made is, well, if I go to work for this high school that's underfunded, at least I'm getting health insurance and a retirement. It may not be the most aggressive. It may not work as well as what they could do on their own. But if we don't give them those tools, they're you have to settle a little bit.
It goes back to the education, though, that we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're educated and know that this is available to you just in different ways, right? And then obviously have the trust in yourself to be able to run the business and how you need to and get the clientele, right? It's only that much easier. I mean, I want to say I was discussing with my dad, who just retired. And we just got into the conversation of like benefits for whatever reason. Because he's pretty set up well, and I think that's why we're talking about it. But I was saying, for the most part, you know, looking at my fiance and what she's paying, and look what I'm paying. I mean, I'm even paying less, and I will say mainly because of that credit, right, that I got with the health insurance and stuff. But I mean, you're looking at life insurance, health insurance, and I'm still waiting to get approved right now for disability insurance. But if you look at, let's say, put the minimums together, I'm paying less than or about $300 a month. She's paying about upwards of $400, right?
Yeah.
Based on all that. So it's like sometimes it could work. It's just, again, goes back to that education part of everything, right? Because I mean, yeah, it sucks not to have money, but it seems like more people are more like, it sucks not to have health insurance because, God forbid, it's the risk reward thing, right? The risk,
Oh, yeah.
and it's just, if something happens, what do I do? So I
Oh,
believe it's
yeah.
a huge piece of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I
Now,
think that, with the salary conversation right now, people are very hung up on the dollar amount going into their pocket. They're not actually looking at the full benefits and how those actually do pay into your pocket later, such as the
yeah.
retirement and all that stuff. But, as we've mentioned multiple times on this episode, is people don't understand how these different aspects actually work for you. And I don't think people take enough time to look at the benefits that certain employers are providing. But I think that's why athletic trainers are in this limbo of they have to be hired by an organization so they can get these benefits, even though they don't understand the benefits.
All right.
But I think that's the next step of athletic training, is figuring out how you can independently go and work on your own and provide yourself your own benefits in some aspect. And I
Well,
think that will be a big step in the athletic training profession ultimately.
it's the total compensation concept because, years ago, for whatever reason, they said, okay, we're going to take your benefits out of the compensation discussion. We're only going to talk about income. And, income is irrelevant if you can't afford to live. You could, you'd be making a lot of money, but if you don't have, you're required to have car insurance. We have requirement for health insurance. We have all these things. And if you can't afford to pay for that, it doesn't matter how much money you make. So you got to really look at that total compensation package as, oh, yeah, it's not a bad deal. The cash isn't necessarily what I'd like it to be, but since they're paying 100% of my medical premiums and they're putting, doing a match, let's say they got a 401k and they're going to match 6.5%. Well, you just made if you max your match, you put 6.5% in, and your employer puts 6.5% in. Guess what that is? That is 100% return on your money on day one. It's like, that's a good deal,
and you don't have to manage it.
Yeah, that's right. And then and they made it easy for you. Pick the day you want to retire, and that's the fund you put it in. They make it very, very simple. So going forward, what do you see? What are some of the things you see exciting in the AT business going forward as you grow your practice? What are you excited about?
I do see more and more athletic trainers coming to the independent contractor side, right? It may not be a lot, but it's still more than, going on 10 years of doing this and all that. I've seen more and more full-time, per diem and independent contractor athletic trainers, right? So just knowing that I'm in a position to, God forbid, right, I have a contract with the local community college under kinesiatrics. So now I'm at I'm in a position to be able to, hey, I got a spot real quick, I need some coverage here, whatnot. But then also just having gone through the bidding process, right? Which I'll tell you right now was a very scary time, hoping that I got it. But just having gone through it now, if there's another college, right, that somebody's looking to get into and hopefully on a part-time basis, stuff, because it'd be a lot easier for me to manage, of course.
Oh,
right.
I totally feel you. I used to bid state contracts for the state of Alaska. Holy cow.
So yeah, right. That's what it is though. 100%. But just knowing that I could then put in a bid under kinesiatrics and now be able to expand and have somebody in like a part-time position where, if they're just looking for a part-time job and all that, and just finding out how this works, now I'm able to put somebody into that position there. And I even thought, because right, we're talking about benefits, I even thought about like putting my accountant into there as like a free part of the package. And I spoke with him, how to do that. Even I have classes, I have obviously life insurance and all this stuff that I can help out with to get people to health insurance. So I was like, I can help somebody do that. Right. Being able to expand kinesiatrics to where now if I'm able to even put somebody in my position where I'm at, focus on the financial aspect of things, just be able to create people, create opportunities for athletic trainers to go in and help them with the financial aspect. I mean, you're looking at 4 athletic trainers by athletic trainers type of deal.
Absolutely. So Joey, how do people find out more about you? How do they connect with you?
So it's still being worked on, but you guys can find me at benjaminstackums.com. That's that'll be out there, complete, like, under construction, but you guys will see what it is there. So benjaminstackums.com, and you guys can find me on Instagram. I'm the most active there. That's also in the revamp, but Benjamin Stackums on Instagram.
All right, outstanding. Well, Joey, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us. I hope you get power back by the time you get back to your place.
I hope so too. I'll probably still be here for a little bit before I head back. So just for that reason.
That's right. Have another mocha. Life
Grab
is good.
some more snacks.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
All right, cool deal. Well, thanks for being with us, Joey, and I wish you the best of luck going forward, buddy.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of To The Bone. I hope we sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To The Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daily, ATC, and Randy Daily. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.